Hey, what's up, guys? It's Protoss here, and today I wanted to talk about one of the more conceptual parts of Istrolid and how some of these higher level players think when we're playing. So, first of all, uh, the meta right now really revolves around fighters, and that's because they're extremely maneuverable and can just be used to cap points out in the middle of nowhere. You can test your opponent's points or protect your own. Um, Getting these points is really important. They give $100 per cap, so if I even blow these up, it's still worth it. They cap the point, so oftentimes willing to throw away a few fighters to cap a point here and there, and that typically is worth it to get that little burst of money. Um, so a lot of the time at the start, people will just make 5, 10 fighters. I prefer to open up with with premium fighters. So that's this fighter with uh, on a micro 360 with the fighter thruster and a few wings. I don't run any with armor, um, so they're faster that way. The armor variant is a little bit slower, but it has a lot better brawling value in the premium fighter matchup, and so it's often preferred by a lot of people. Um, Another opener that people are a fan of is 10 demis. So the demi fighter, obviously it's on a demi spinal mount. It's a lot tankier than the preems, and it's typically a lot easier and safer to go for. I would recommend going demis if you're just starting. They are a little bit harder to contest the map with, but often you're able to hold on to your full points with them really well. So as we transition into the mid game, uh, one of the most popular spawns is Tesla. We really enjoy Tesla as it just kind of shuts fighters down entirely right now. It's a little bit overtuned, but just a tad. It has insane DPS for fighters, and I go to the other team here and show you what I'm talking about. So if I like make 10 preems, um, they'll just kind of die really quickly here to this Tesla. Like, we'll fly him in range. Obviously, that's not what you want to do with these, but it takes 2, 3 seconds and they're just dead. And so that's why these Teslas are great to just spawn, get into the mid game pretty safely without a lot of challenges. Um, Controlling them can be difficult at times, but for the most part, it's really not that hard. So, to recap so far, you spawn fighters for the early game, and then you make a Tesla as you want to transition into the mid game. You can tell the mid game is coming. Uh, a lot of the time, it'll be when your opponent starts to apply pressure to your points. So there's 8 points, four are yours, four are your opponent's. If your opponent has some of your points, that's really bad because that means they're getting more economy than you and have more money. And as I like to say, more shit counters less shit. So so don't have less shit. Get those points. It's super important. Um, so we played the early game out. We just settled 4-4. We got 4 points. They got for 4 points. Nothing much. And you have some fighters left over from the early game. Those will be useful later, but in the mid game, fighters are mostly just used for harass. Um, if your opponent does spawn like some carriers though, and just leave them unprotected, you that's what the that's why I'm partial to preems because they just get value against carriers and you can snipe them really easily. With the demis, you don't really have that option, but they provide their own advantages of just protecting against the preems really well. So you oftentimes see players who just don't want to fuck with preems go demis and kill them pretty hard. So that's early game. In the I need to cap some more points. I don't have enough money. um, as you go into the later phases of the game. So you got past the mid game, nobody really engaged. You maybe traded out some fighters for a carrier or something. Well, a lot of times I'll throw away 4 or 5 fighters to go kill somebody's carrier. It just throws them off their mojo most of the time, and some of the better players it doesn't work against. But a lot of the mid tier players, if you snipe that carrier, it feels really really bad and can often put them in a bad spot if they don't have money in the bank. Um, but as you move into the late game and where you're probably gonna have a big fight with your opponent, ships that have more burst damage are going to become more relevant. So this ship is it's heavy beam. It's a ship that just dumps it has a lot of batteries. The reload on the beams mean they shoot super fast. They're not very efficient, but they have super high damage, and it just kind of kills things. So that's the advantage of it. Um, there is like hyper efficient damage plasma ships. Like this is damage plasma, and it's just efficient in its brawling value. Whereas this ship is inefficient, because the beams just it has the best mechanics in the game, but in trade for that, it has reduced range, reduced damage, and it's not very efficient. Is what I'm trying to get at. Whereas plasma, ooh, pressed the wrong button there. It has not great mechanics to it. It can be body blocked. It's slow, but fuck, is it efficient? Like that's what plasma does. Damage efficiently. Plasma like this has really fallen off recently. It is it's really easy to dodge, and it's it not having great mechanics is why people have stopped playing this kind of ship. It's still entirely valid though. If your opponent is playing slow ships, you can just plasma them down, and we don't really see that a lot anymore. But it still happens sometimes, and it feels really bad to have it happen. But it's still really really good. And so that's yeah. As you move to the end game, you'll have ships like these. Just something that can kill your opponent's shit, so you can take points and get the economy advantage. If you're up on points, you want to try and hold on to them. If you're down on points, you need to be aggressive. I think that goes without saying, but I'm gonna say it anyways because I'm not sure if everybody knows that. Um, but yeah, that's the overview of why we spawn the ships we spawn a lot of the time. Um, but ships with big energy reserves in the form of batteries typically just dump their entire battery, and yeah, they're good right now. Plasma always been good, always will be good. Always be aware of it. It's a constant threat. Beams, a newer threat, something very different. They kind of kill kites. They're really good. Tesla, also a newer ship, or a newer type of ship that we haven't seen in a long time or ever, and it really stabilizes the fleet and holds it together. It stops carriers from getting sniped, and it provides even good damage against heavier ships. So it transitions well from the early game into the mid and late game, but they lose effectiveness in numbers. Plasmas are just great brawlers, and if they're not dodging, Plasma will just fucking win. Like, we can go make the Plasma just win here. If we fly the Tesla into the Plasma, yeah, it kills it. It just kind of kills it. So, that's my overview on how I think about the game. Fighters, get points, contest, put pressure on your opponent, snipe stuff off into the mid and late game. Um, Stabilize with Tesla as you go into the mid game, and if you're not trying to cheese your opponent out, which is an entirely different thing upon itself, um, Tesla will often get you just into a nice spot, and then finishing with beams or plasma. That's how I like to play the game. Brawl it out. Thanks, guys. It's been Protoss. This is my overview on how I play Astrolid and some more of the harder concepts or more of the conceptual things that aren't necessarily micro or stuff. But yeah, thanks, guys. Have a good one.